we have really found something that works if you need to hire fast. We are actually screening them during this process. What type they fit into, that's part of the recruiting. We only want to work with the best people. I think you're going to have success with it. Welcome back to the e-commerce update. My name is Daniel Schubert, and today we'll talk about hiring and how you can use a data-driven approach to kind of scale this up and make sure you get the best employees. Now, it doesn't matter if you run an agency or an e-commerce store, you're gonna need the best people if you really want to scale it. And by now, you might be running a business where you have hundreds, if not tens of employees, and you're already doing this, you're already hiring. But this is a process that I think can improve upon what you're doing now, and it's something you will see a much greater output from your employees because you're gonna get the best people, and you're also gonna get the best talent from the right places, which is something I think is very underestimated. But let's kind of dive into the process of which we have been perfecting over the last 10 years. Still not perfect, obviously, but it's something that we've really spent a lot of time on, and we've had a lot of obstacles along the way, and now I think we got something that we can really scale. We hired over 20 people in the last 3 months, so we have really found something that works if you need to hire fast as well. The first tip I'm going to give you, and this is obvious, is to get a full-time recruiter. You might not be at the level right now where you can afford that. In this case, I really recommend you hire someone on a freelance basis that can work with you whenever you have a role. But if you have a certain amount of hirings, let's say you need to hire several people every month, then obviously you need someone like that. Now, that's in contrast to just having the HR manager do all the recruiting. What I found is that some people are really good at recruiting and some people are really good at the HR process, which is the onboarding, managing employees throughout the years, making sure they're happy, the one-to-ones, so forth and so forth. Recruiter, someone who is super excited to jump on a call, understand if they're the right candidate, and it's really a very systematic task, which can be draining if you don't have the right personality for that. So just keep that in mind. Those roles need to be separated. If you don't have that set up, that's something you can look for in the future. Now, the first hack that I really want to share, besides the recruiter HR separation, is really to find the best candidates through a system where we will look up competitors. So basically, instead of just hiring whoever you can find, you put a job up on LinkedIn, whatever. This approach, we're actually going to put up our job, which is going to be our base, which we can always refer to, but we're actually going out to find the best candidates in the best companies. So let's say I'm running a pet store brand and I'm selling pet supplements. If I wanted to find someone that is really good at product development for supplements and maybe even for pet products, maybe I should go out and look for other brands that are selling this stuff and see if they have certain roles within the company, like product developer or designer. And that way I can find someone who has that experience. It sounds obvious, but a lot of brands are not doing it. So that means I could find the best pet supplement stores around the world, and I could be looking to see if they have someone in that role, which I could then approach. And it's even easier if it's a generic role or something that you can do no matter what company you're in. So let's say you're looking for head of e-commerce. There's tons of people working in that field, and there's even people working on the agency side, and there's people working on the D2C side. Here you could just find brands which you really admire that have scaled and really done well, and that would be your benchmark for finding the right people. In this case, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, or thousands even. Now, you might want to consider if you want to hire remotely or in-house. Some companies are just 100% in-house and that's it, and that means they can only really search for candidates in the same country or maybe even the same state, which is a big contrast to remote, where we can hire people from all over the world. Hiring in-house obviously comes with some advantages. You can meet them, coach them better, you know what they're doing, and so forth and so forth. Personally, I think where the world is going is that we're all going to be working remotely at some point, with the option of coming into an office once in a while. That's probably going to be that hybrid approach that most companies will go to in the future. So being a little bit proactive here, we've just hired completely remotely in our agency, and that has worked really well. But it's something you need to consider. Obviously, if it's in-house, then when you're doing this competitor research, you need to look for companies in the same country or state. Otherwise, you're gonna have to pay for them to relocate and move their family and so forth. And we've just seen that that's very tricky, and most people will not accept it. So that could be difficult. Now, with all that in mind, here's the exact hiring process that we go through every single time we hire someone. So we always do the benchmarking approach. Let's just say we have 100 candidates for from this approach. And now we are going to be reaching out to them, manually outreach, headhunting. And we're gonna ask them if they're interested in the job. And if they say yes, then we ask them to send over a quick 5-minute Loom video or whatever they're using to record, where they are having to answer a few questions in English about themselves on a personal level. It could be, what are their biggest wins in their career, some of the failures, what went wrong and how they dealt with that, what brings them happiness and peace in their life, and what makes them frustrated. And this is just to really get a little bit deeper into their personality. But in reality, we're also listening to their English levels, their body language, how they're addressing everything, because it tells a story about themselves. Did they take time to prepare for this call? What is their background on the call? Like all these little details says a lot about them, attention to detail and the willingness to go the extra mile for this job. So these are things we all evaluate, but the main thing is the English level and some of the answers to these questions. Now, if they do really well here, we can say, they will be able to work with us. The English level is good. Then we want to send them into a bigger personality test, which we use a software for that, and it's maximum 15 minutes, and the answer gets uploaded to our platform as soon as they're done. So it's super seamless. We don't have to kind of collect and download. It just uploads automatically. We use a site called Test Gorilla, but you can use so many other platforms out there. There are so many personality tests and HR programs you can use. We just found this really good because depending on the role, we can send them different tests, but we really like the 16 type personality tests created by Carl Jung, which really allows us to score them based on the personality they have, what type they fit into. And it helps us also to hire without bias, which is a big thing for us now. We want to make sure we get that assessment done by a software, not by a recruiter, so that we know this is very objective, and that really gives us the foundation to take it into the last stage of the hiring process. So we got the video done, it was good. We got the personality test done, that was also good. Now it's time to go in and talk directly with a recruiter, and here we'll be asking much more specific questions related to the role and also their personality and so forth and so forth. Now, there's tons of questions that could be a video on its own, but that's just to say that's kind of step 3. And sometimes the role is fit for hiring after that. We got everything we needed. The recruiter really likes the person, and we just send over the employment contract. Sometimes it's a very specialist specific role, so we need to go a bit deeper. In this case, what we'll do is do a case trial, which is a very, very basic test, but still allows the candidate to go really deep if they want to. And it can also just take 10 minutes if they don't feel like doing something really, really deep. In this case trial, it will be something specific to the role which they could be facing on a day-to-day basis. And we want to see how they handle themselves, if they go the extra mile and so on. At this point, you might be saying like, whoa, that's a lot of steps, and why are you doing that? I would never do it if I was a candidate. But that's okay, because we are actually screening them during this process. And we know some people will fall off, some people will not complete on deadline and so forth. And that's part of the recruiting. We need to see if you're motivated enough to go through the steps. If you miss the deadline, if you're not communicating, if you're not doing a good job on each step, then you're not the right fit for the candidate. So it's a natural segmentation, right? Like you can imagine water going through a lot of layers in the ground, and at the very, very end, you have this really, really pure water. You have water that made it all the way down to the bottom. And that's what we're trying to do here. We only want to work with the best people, so we need to filter through the process. And we're really open and transparent, by the way, about, hey, there's these steps. You just need to know that up front, and people can say no up front if they don't feel motivated, and that's super fine as well. If it's a really simple role, again, it's just a recruiter. If it's a specialist, then you go through the case trial, and at the very, very end, after that case trial, you have a department leader come in and assess the last part of the skills, talk about the case trial, and if it goes well, then it's a hire. So a lot of processes. What we really like is the department leader is involved in every single hire within their department. So let's say it's a development role, we have the department leader for development in there to assess their skills. We need to make sure they're doing well, because ultimately how we set up our company is that the department leader is responsible for everyone within their department. So if they have a slacker who's not performing, we're not going to go to the slacker and say, you're not doing a good job. We're going to go to the department leader and say, you have someone here who's not doing well. It's your responsibility to fire that person or to make sure they're coached and get whatever they need to get back up on track. And that's a really nice way to set up your company, to have people be responsible for people below. And that's just so good because you don't have to micromanage anymore. You just have the department leaders make sure that they feel responsible for everyone within. And that also naturally makes them more inclined to find the best people because they know they're going to have to vouch for that person eventually throughout the job stage. So anyway, that was a long video, but this is the structure we're using for recruiting and for hiring. And it's really powerful because it takes away the personality aspect of it. It's very unbiased in the beginning because we have these tests that are really without any bias at all. And you could take away the 5-minute intro video, which we asked for, and you could also do a English assessment test there. And this could be done without looking at the candidate at all or anything like that. It's just basically here we need you to take this test and then the personality test, and after that you'll go to an interview. That is a structure you could do if you wanted to completely take away the human element and get completely 100% unbiased. And I think that's really important today, making sure that ethnicity, background, whatever it might be, is not a factor here. We're only looking for the professionalism. We're only looking for the skill sets. Think about that if you're looking to scale up hiring. This is a structure you can use to get to over 200 people, and I think you're going to have success with it.